there, my name is Dawn Richards. Let's talk about PxP, For Patients by Patients, a virtual conference about partnering to make research stronger. I'm privileged to talk to you a bit about PxP today, where it came from, what it's all about, why it's important, and I'm here today in my role with the Canadian Institutes of Health Research Institute of Musculoskeletal Health and Arthritis, where I help the Institute with its patient engagement in research work. I identify as both a researcher, I'm a chemist by training, and I also identify as a patient. I've lived with rheumatoid arthritis for nearly 20 years. Let's make sure we're all talking the same language. Based on where you are in the world, you might know it as patient engagement in research, you might know it as patient and public involvement, or patient and public involvement and engagement, or you might know it as consumer involvement. The Canadian Institutes of Health Research definition of this is patient engagement being about meaningful collaboration. It's when patients become partners in a project and they can be actively engaged all throughout and across it, in the governance, in the priority setting, in setting what the research questions are, and even in performing parts of the research itself. We're not talking about patient participation in research, which is important, but we're talking about patients being partners and research team members. Another way to look at it is research that's being carried out with or by members of the public or with patients, rather than to, about, or for them. So I indicated that I'm here on behalf of a role that I have with the CIHR, which is Canada's Federal Health Research Funding Agency, and its Institute of Musculoskeletal Health and Arthritis, one of a number of institutes at CIHR. This particular institute has a long history of collaborating with patients as partners, right from when its first scientific director, Dr. Cy Frank, created what was called a Research Ambassadors Initiative back in the early 2000s. These were mostly patient partners who were doing a lot of things that were inward facing at the Institute. So they were advising the Institute about various things related to being patients or related to research from their perspective, including knowledge translation, plain language in research, and other things. And over the years, that Research Ambassadors Initiative ebbed and flowed based on who the scientific director at the Institute was. The scientific directors have terms of 4 to 8 years. And through that time, patients were members of a very typical academic advisory board. They were present and presenting at workshops and conferences, and they were doing different things generally related to the Institute. A couple of years into the current scientific director, Dr. Carm Khan's term, the research ambassadors evolved into becoming patient engagement research ambassadors really early on in the pandemic. And this was a result of listening to the research ambassadors talk about the fact that they saw gaps in research related to patient engagement. And they really wanted to be a group that did things rather than just advise. Not that advising isn't important, but the group is really motivated to produce things. And so the Institute was more than happy to work with that group of really engaged patient partners. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about these patient engagement research ambassadors. They're really key to PxP. We affectionately call them PARA for short. They're on their second cohort now, which is generally 6 to 8 members. These are people who identify as patients themselves or who are caregivers. So they live with or have experience with a condition that falls under the Institute's mandate. The research ambassadors, the PARA group, has its own mandate, terms of reference, and it reports into the Institute Advisory Board. Currently, the group is meeting every 2 months virtually, and importantly, they're offered an honorarium if they wish to accept it for their work. They work really closely with the Institute to co-create products and outputs to help others do patient engagement and research. And the work that they do is not necessarily related only to one disease area. We generally call it disease agnostic. It can help anybody working in any kind of area in patient engagement and research. And this group is key to PxP. They came up with the idea for this conference through a number of conversations at their meetings. And with that, para members are on the steering committee each year for PxP, along with international patient colleagues. And really purposefully, the steering committee of PxP turns over every year. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So let's get into what PxP is. As I mentioned, it's a virtual conference and it stands for patients by patients, and it's all about partnering to make research stronger. PxP has a website, pxphub.org, and 2023 was the first year we ran a PxP conference. The information on the right and the QR code is from a peer-reviewed publication that was co-authored with a number of 2023's PxP steering committee members. And that paper can be thought of as a recipe for how to do PxP, how it came about, the types of resources that you need, even down to a potential budget that you might need to do this. Why is PxP even important? Well, we know across the globe that patients want to be engaged as partners in all aspects of research. And these are quotes from two presenters at PxP 2023. Cheryl said, "We like to be involved in all stages of the research now. We like to be involved in how researchers go out into our communities and what values they go out with." Sneha Dave, who's from the US, said, "We really want patients and us as people with lived experience to be there from the beginning, designing the research question through their own experiences." And we know that being a patient partner and the community, the global community, is a bit different because it's not always just about the disease or the condition you live with. The binding agent here, so to speak, is that people are involved and want to be partners in research. So let's take a step back for a minute and take a look at this figure from our publication that came out in 2024. There are things that need to go into making a successful conference that's completely designed and led by patients for other patients. At the core of this is that ethos, that it's for patients by patients. The tagline in our case is partnering to make research stronger. And the whole aim is to bring resources, mentorship, and community to patient partners, no matter where they are in the world. They've got lots in common, even though their experiences where they live might be a little bit different. Things related to patient partnering can often be very similar. So in 2023, the steering committee had 9 international members. In 2024, it had 8 members and it expanded across different continents. And in 2025, we've got 12 steering committee members whose growth in different countries has continued to increase, and also includes people who are from lower and middle income countries. I'm the research consultant here, the patient engagement research consultant, and I'm lucky and privileged enough to work with the steering committee and to work with the Institute staff really closely. Yes, this takes other resources. It takes money and it takes operational resources. So there's website costs, there's event platform costs, which in the case of PxP have been the Zoom platform, and there's honoraria costs as well. So all of the speakers, all of the panelists in PxP, the steering committee members are all offered an honoraria if they wish to receive it. And then there's all of this amazing expertise, insights, and skills that also go into this conference. And In the case of PxP, we really try and help people build their skills. So we might see people talking at PxP who maybe don't often get invited to do that sort of thing, or maybe aren't often invited to be on the steering committee. And we're really looking to help different people grow and grow their skills. Most of the people who present at PxP identify as patients or caregivers themselves. So what are the outputs of PxP? What does it look like as a conference? So since 2023, it's been a 3-day conference. It's been fully virtual and free to attend. That's been really important for the steering committee in terms of making the conference as accessible as possible to as many different people as possible. In both 2023 and 2024, we recorded 9 different sessions digitally so that people who couldn't attend live in their time zone could still take part, so to speak, in watching the sessions. In 2024, we also hosted Ask Me Anything sessions that were not recorded, but not digitally recorded. They were graphically recorded. So we did that to create a safe space for patient partners to ask other patient partners anything about their experiences related to engagement. And we didn't record it digitally, so they could feel very free to ask different things, but we recorded it graphically so we could still capture the essence of that conversation. Importantly, too, the 3-day conference happens at different times. At least one of those days is shifted, so it's easier for people in Asia and Australia, New Zealand, and countries in and around that area to be able to attend some sessions live. So PxP is about building community for patient partners across the globe. In 2023, we had just over 600 people register from 34 countries, and just under half of those people actually attended live sessions from 18 countries. In 2024, the registrant number almost doubled, so it's really close to 1,200 people in 38 countries, and we had about 500 participants attend live. We hope that that number will continue to grow. And we're trying our best to share any learnings and resources, both from developing the conference and hosting the conference, as well as from all of the sessions at the conference. While the main audience of PxP is patient partners, it's open to anyone who wants to learn more about patient engagement and research. So we encourage researchers, we encourage trainees, clinicians, anyone else who's got a curiosity. The PxP Hub has not only information about the conference, it also has information about a webinar series that PARA members host throughout the year between the conference, and the conference is usually in September. It also contains all of the recordings from PxP digital or graphic, and it also includes anonymous chats from any of the Zoom chats in the sessions associated with PxP. So we can still capture that rich dialogue that happens at each session. And there's often lots of sharing of resources there. So those are all posted on the Hub. There's different papers, there's different blogs and articles, there's different templates and tools that anyone who's interested in patient engagement and research can go look through, download, and hopefully learn from. I wanted to share an example of a graphical recording because I know not everyone is familiar with that. So here's an example of a graphical recording where we had an artist who does identify as a patient themselves basically listen in on one of the Ask Me sessions from the 2024 conference and record the conversation. So you can see all kinds of gems that came out where why do you think you're here? How do you feel things have changed over the years in terms of patient engagement? Advice for how people advocate for themselves, asking themselves whether or not it's worth doing this kind of work, Uh, how do you comfort those in need who happen to be part of patient engagement and research initiatives? So just to give you a sense of what a non-video recording looks like from a session. So here's some of the things that we've learned at PxP, and these are some threads that often come through the various sessions at the conference, that some of the key things are building relationships to build community, modeling trust and trustworthiness, and investing time and resources. So these are some quotes from people at PxP 2023 who are part of some of the sessions. Dermot Dineni is a researcher, and Dermot says, building strong relationships has been vital for me. That's been the roots and the trunk of any collaborative work I've been involved with. Sandra Giacotti, and Sandra's from the UK, says, notice I did not just say building trust and community relationships. I said investing time and resources to build the trust and the relationship. And Alma McCormick is from the US. Alma identifies as a Native American. And Alma said, we developed a relationship before we did any work. That's the key. It's about relationships. So here are some of the other gems that I would like to bring to you from some of the sessions, in this case from PxP 2024. We had a session about power dynamics and patient engagement and research, and this is a really important area in terms of who holds the power in these types of collaborations. And so the different participants brought up different things about this. So Fez said, people forget that not everyone has the same experience, even if they have the same illness. Zara said, the whole point of collaborating with patient partners is for that lived experience lens. And Patrick said, if there can be really good partnerships and collaborations fostered for the good of creating better innovations and medical outcomes, if you don't advocate for yourself, who will? And Sherelle said, it's your job, but my life changes others' perspectives. Have those honest conversations. This was another conversation we had at PxP 2024. And this was about the role of patient partners to bring new voices to research and help build diversity on the research team. So you'll see some of the things that pop up here about transparency, language, respect, empathy, advocacy, and acknowledgement. And Raisa said, we all come from different experiences and we bring that. Patricia, who's in Brazil, said, include different voices of the research in decision-making. Our conditions don't define us. We need to embrace people to participate more. Stephanie's from Canada, and one of the things that she said is ensuring that the voices of people who communicate differently are represented. And Stephanie is public about being the mother of a young boy who is not often verbal. And then Oluwafemi Ajayi from Nigeria said, the word patient is generic. Diseases are different. People are in different locations. It's important to have different opinions and reflections. It helps to bring people into being a patient partner. And I'm going to follow up with a few quotes from both patient partner and from a researcher to really help sum up, I think, what PxP is about. Sabrina Poirier says, I am more than just my sickness. And Linda Lee from Canada, who is a physiotherapist and an academic researcher, says, as researchers, we need to be humble and we need to listen, to learn from people with lived experience. And I don't think I can sum it up any better than what Linda did there. So PxP is a virtual conference. It's driven by patients for patients. It's all about patient engagement and research, whether you call it patient engagement, you call it patient public involvement, you call it consumer involvement. Each year, PxP has a global steering committee that's responsible for all aspects of the conference, and they make all the decisions related to the conference, the speakers, the colors, what the schedule looks like, all the fun stuff that makes PxP what it is. And PxP is supported in the background with resources like me and some of my other colleagues at the Institute, as well as finances and other operational resources. If you're interested in finding out more information about PxP, the website is here. The QR code will take you to the website, and there's an email address also, contact@pxphub.org.